Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Miha and welcome to the channel. This is our first monthly roundup. I will highlight a few interesting stories from February that are related to the AI space. As usual, links to everything I talk about are in the video description below, so if you want to follow any of these stories or read up about them in more detail, you can find links there. Our first story is a general update on what's happening with models and investment in the space. First of all, OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic all released new models. ChatGPT 5.4 is a new thinking model released by OpenAI. Google released Gemini 3.1 Pro, which has a massive reasoning upgrade, and Anthropic released Claude 4.6, which offers a 1 million token memory. That's enough to upload about 20 books at once and then interact with AI as it parses the data. And Alibaba released Qwen 3.5. These are models that you can run locally on your computer if you use LM Studio, which is something we covered in a previous video. And underpinning this growth are massive investments. This year alone, more than $200 billion has been invested in AI infrastructure. There clearly is some hype in the market, but there's also an indications that we are beginning to change the way that we work because of these technologies. And I think a lot of investors are hoping, or at least have faith, that there will be significant returns on these type of investments. And one example of this is OpenClaw and the idea of vibe coding. OpenClaw went viral this month, and it's basically an agent that lives on your computer, and it can browse the web and interact with any of your tools or apps on your computer just as a human would. And linked to this is the idea of vibe coding, where instead of writing code, you give the AI general vibe or the logic of what you want, and the AI handles the technical development, often through a series of agents. And we're already seeing some interesting applications of this technology. If you work in education, whether you teach in high schools or middle schools, you teach in universities, or you run professional certification programs, especially those that require continuing education, you really want to be mindful of these tools, especially something called Einstein. This is a tool that doesn't just write students' essays, but it can log into learning platforms like Canvas, watch recorded lectures, read the syllabus, download assignments, complete the assignments, and upload them. And it can do all of that while the student sleeps. This idea of a ghost student is something we need to spend a lot more time talking about in education, because it also raises questions of, well, what is the value of education if a student can simply give AI tools their password, access to their files, and then AI will complete all of their assignments and maybe an entire degree if it's all asynchronously without any further involvement. This is a serious issue, and whether you work in education or compliance where people have to take mandatory training, this is absolutely something we should be spending a lot more time discussing. And I do expect we will see more conversations about these kind of tools in the education space. There simply aren't clear regulations on how to use this AI in education, or anywhere for that matter, and governments are facing a bit of a paradox. They are on the one hand trying to control these tools to make sure that they remain safe and useful for us. On the other hand, they want to speed up these tools' adoption, not just for economic reasons, but increasingly for national security reasons. We saw part of this dynamic play out when the US government banned the use of Anthropic. The government wanted to use these tools, but Anthropic's private safety constitution clashed with the military requirements. And so the challenge for leaders is that we're expected to innovate and use these tools, but at the same time, the rules on their use are changing every few months, or they're still utterly unclear. One example of this came from a legal case in New York. A federal judge recently raised serious concerns about whether documents created using AI tools could jeopardize attorney-client privilege. In other words, uploading sensitive data to AI, especially to models that live in the cloud, could be akin to disclosing it to a third party, which legally could compromise the confidentiality of sensitive data. This underpins the importance of very clear rules for AI use in any organization. AI governance is absolutely critical, and we should be spending more time thinking and talking about it than we currently are. And finally, an update on the workforce side. Companies are beginning to require the use of AI. Meta and Accenture have officially begun tying employee performance to AI adoption and use. They are using AI to measure how employees are using AI and the benefits of those use cases. I suspect we will see more of this as companies want to better understand how their employees are using AI to identify potential best practices and perhaps to justify the large investments that they're making in this technology. So in 2026, using AI is no longer a bonus skill. I suspect that within the next 2 or 3 years, all of us will have some kind of AI use in our performance evaluation. It might even determine our next promotion or bonus. And these are the major stories that I wanted to highlight for you from the month of February. You can find links to all of these stories in the video description below if you want to follow them or read up more on any of these topics. I do think that Agentic AI will be the big technology that we will talk about over the course of this year and definitely in future years as well. My advice, if you want to get into space, you want to start learning, experimenting with these tools, please do so in a sandbox. We just discussed some of the security implications in a previous video. There's also legal implications, as we just discussed today. So please make sure that whatever you experiment with is done in a sandbox environment, that it's safe, and that it meets all of the legal and use requirements by your organization. In the next video, we will revisit LM Studio. A few of you had asked how you can enable the tool to do things like search the web or parse your files. So I'll show you a few simple plugins you can use with LM Studio to do exactly those kinds of things. We will also look at the open source models that were released this year, including Qwen 3.5, which I mentioned earlier, and help you identify the right one for your use cases. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.